A blacked-out SUV screeched to a halt on a quiet Texas street, and two bulky men in fake tactical gear grabbed a teenage boy off his own lawn, claiming he'd broken HOA regulations. No badges, no explanation, just cold hands on his wrists and a threat to take him in. From the second-story window, his father watched it all unfold, a man the impostors had no idea they were about to cross. But what happened next will shock even those who thought they'd seen everything. But first, let's go back to the beginning. Jake didn't even hear the vehicle roll up at first. The thrum of his music and the hum of the mower drowned out everything else. The early sun glinted off the freshly cut grass, the air thick with the familiar scent of summer clippings. It was a peaceful routine, a pocket of normalcy in a neighborhood where peace had been thinning lately. That morning, Jake's only worry was finishing the yard before the heat got brutal. He had no idea he was seconds away from being treated like a criminal on his own front lawn. When the SUV halted at the curb with a dry hiss of rubber, Jake looked up, puzzled. The vehicle was all wrong. Too aggressive looking for a residential street, with windows so dark they seemed to absorb sunlight. The magnetic decal on the side read HOA Enforcement Division, but the lettering was off-center, as if slapped on in a hurry. A red flag, if Jake had known what to look for. But to him, it was just weird. He turned off the mower and pulled his headphones down, frowning as two men climbed out. The first was tall and square-jawed, wearing a tactical vest that looked like something from a Halloween aisle. No badge, no name tag, just a fake walkie-talkie and an attitude. The second man was shorter but stockier, gripping a clipboard so tight it looked like he might snap it in half. They moved with the stiff overconfidence of men who believed a costume was all they needed to command respect. "Are you Jake Matthews?" the clipboard man asked, his voice already hostile, as if Jake had personally insulted him just by existing. Jake hesitated. "Yeah, why?" "You're in violation of multiple HOA codes. Property damage, unauthorized landscaping, potential trespassing. We've had complaints. You're being taken in for questioning." Jake's eyebrows shot up. "Wait, what? I live here. This is my house." "You can explain that downtown, hands behind your back." Before Jake could react, one of them seized his wrist, his body locked with panic, confusion blurring every thought. Was this real? Could the HOA even do this? His pulse roared in his ears, drowning out the weak protests spilling from his lips. And from the second-story window behind half-closed blinds, Daniel Matthews saw everything. His face, still streaked with dried sweat from the morning's operation, hardened. The slow-burn rage of a father and a cop took hold. He didn't reach for his phone. He didn't call backup. He reached for his badge and stepped toward the door. The screen door slammed against the frame as Daniel Matthews stormed down the front steps. The morning sun bounced off the silver edge of his badge still clipped inside his jacket, concealed but close, just in case. His face was stone. Not rage, not panic. Precision. The kind that settles deep into the bones of a man who's spent 2 decades commanding armed men in live fire situations and knew exactly when a line had been crossed. "Step away from my son, now!" His voice detonated across the yard. It wasn't loud. It was lethal. The kind of voice that halts muscle memory and makes cowards remember they're not built for real confrontation. The two fake enforcers froze. Clipboard guy, taller, a little younger, instinctively stepped between Daniel and Jake, trying to fake calm under pressure. "Sir, we're within rights. This is HOA jurisdiction." Daniel advanced without slowing. "There is no such thing as HOA jurisdiction for detaining a minor. You think a decal and a clipboard make you law? You just laid hands on a child. My child." His voice was now low, controlled, the kind of low that makes men regret they ever opened their mouths. Jake stood behind them, frozen in place, eyes flicking between the two impostors and the father he'd never seen like this. Not at home. Not in this raw form. The man with SWAT steel in his spine and a courtroom under every syllable. Daniel stopped just a few feet away. IDs, now! Radio guy hesitated, eyes darting toward the SUV, toward the street, toward any exit. Clipboard guy licked his lips. We're subcontracted. The HOA board signed off. We were just told. Daniel's hand moved with surgical speed, not for his gun, but for his badge. The gold glint caught the light as he flipped it open, angled to their eye level. Captain Daniel Matthews, City Police. You're impersonating officers, illegally detaining a minor, and trespassing on private property. Then, quieter, almost as punctuation. And my ring cam's been rolling this whole time. They didn't run at first. They twitched. That small bodily betrayal where the mind breaks before the legs move. Then both turned and bolted like rabbits, vaulting over the low picket fence, one tripping slightly in the panic to escape. The clipboard clattered on the sidewalk, forgotten. Daniel didn't flinch, didn't pursue. He didn't need to. Because in his world, silence was the space between a mistake and the weight of consequence. And these two just wrote their names in bold. The investigation didn't begin with red tape or committee votes. It began with orders. Captain Matthews made the call less than an hour after the men fled. Not to a dispatcher, not to the local precinct. He called his own unit, the one that specialized in domestic fraud, impersonation, and abuse of authority. These weren't rent-a-cops or paper pushers. These were the same men and women he'd led through hostage rescues and interstate stings. He trusted them, and more importantly, they trusted him. By mid-afternoon, a black SUV, this one real, idled outside HOA President Karen Whitmore's upscale bungalow. Karen had built her little empire block by block, using charm where it worked and coercion where it didn't. She ran the HOA like a feudal duchy, wielding fines like arrows and bylaws like a broadsword. And now, in the folders laid open on her dining room table, was proof that the crown was never legitimate. Daniel's team didn't need to kick down doors. Karen answered with her usual smirk, until she saw the badges, real ones, with weight. She tried to deflect, called it a misunderstanding, claimed her relatives were volunteers. But her house told the real story. In a locked file cabinet, picked open in under 5 minutes, they found counterfeit HOA credentials, blank citation slips, and a ledger labeled Priority Zones. Inside were addresses of homeowners who had recently complained, protested rule changes, or refused to pay arbitrary fines. Each was marked with a red or green dot. Red meant pressure. Green meant ready to flip. One name in green, Jake Matthews. The motive came into focus like blood rising to the surface. Karen wasn't protecting the neighborhood. She was gutting it for profit. The fake violations were designed to provoke despair. Despair made people sell. And Karen, always ready with a generous cash offer, would be waiting with paperwork in hand. One wall of her home office was covered in Polaroids. Driveways with tiny cracks, lawns 1 inch too long, fences a shade off regulation. She'd built a case against every house she wanted to buy, and punished anyone who stood in her way. By sunset, Karen Whitmore was in handcuffs. Her cousins, one found hiding at a motel, the other caught trying to leave town, followed by morning. When Jake's phone footage hit social media that night, it spread like gasoline under a match. A teenager, nearly abducted by men pretending to be law. A father, a real cop, calling their bluff. A neighborhood held hostage by fraud. The internet didn't need time to decide. They wanted blood. The community center was packed, shoulder to shoulder, wall to wall, with residents who, until that week, had only seen each other through hedges and petty violation notices. Now, they came not just to listen, but to witness. Anger hummed like a power line through the air, crackling beneath the surface of folded arms and hard stares. No pastries, no smiles, just judgment waiting to fall. When Captain Daniel Matthews stepped up to the podium, the room quieted like a courtroom at sentencing. He wore his uniform, not out of vanity, but to make it crystal clear, this wasn't a neighbor airing grievances. This was the law speaking. 2 officers flanked him, their presence as deliberate as it was symbolic. This was no longer about HOA bylaws or minor disputes. This was about justice, about exposing the rot that had festered beneath the surface of their planned community. Daniel scanned the crowd, then spoke. "I don't care what power you think you have," he said. "You do not get to terrorize families under the false banner of order. That ends now." No microphone. He didn't need one. His voice had weight, not volume, and it landed like a gavel. Some residents nodded slowly. Others clenched fists. A few blinked back tears. From the back of the room, Karen Whitmore stood up, her blouse too pressed, her lipstick too perfect. "This is slander. I was only trying to protect property values." The first boo hit her like a thrown stone. Then another. Then a wave. She tried to speak again, but the room, once ruled by her cold-eyed authority, had turned entirely against her. She was no longer the voice of order. She was the enemy. The trial was swift, evidence airtight, motive clear, the spreadsheet, the fake badges, the attempted abduction of a minor. Each charge layered upon the next until the sentence felt not just deserved. It felt merciful. 6 years, conspiracy, fraud, impersonating law enforcement, abuse of public trust. The county disbanded the HOA within a week. Every fine Karen had pushed through was rescinded, every dollar refunded. The office that once bore her nameplate was stripped bare. The bylaws were erased. Reform was already underway, but it wasn't Daniel who led it. He didn't need to. Jake, once a quiet teenager nearly dragged into a car on his own driveway, returned to mowing the lawn as if the ground itself had changed. Neighbors he'd barely spoken to now stopped to wave, to thank him. Some just looked at him like he'd walked out of a movie. As for Daniel, he never shouted again. He never had to. Once the truth speaks loud enough, silence becomes respect.